Majora's Mask 80% has been a category with not too many resources for people to learn off of, as it contains multiple tricks that are both difficult to learn and admittedly not documented very well. With that being said, welcome to my Majora's Mask 80% tutorial. For starters, these are the options that I recommend. Mono sound allows the audio cues to be heard a little bit easier when doing them, and hold targeting makes the Majora fight a little bit easier as well when dealing with the remains. Your file name in this run is actually very important. The first 5 characters can be whatever you want them to be, but the last 3 characters need to be capital F, lowercase pr. Now the first few minutes of this run is all cutscenes basically, and all you need to know is that you need to mash through them, so I'm going to go ahead and speed up through this part. Alright, so for the first actual bit of movement in this run, all we're gonna do is backwalk towards the like the hole in the tree up ahead to progress. This part again is all cutscenes, so we're gonna go ahead and speed through that as well. Alright, so here you're just going to want to spin towards the door. Optionally as well, you can backwalk to the door. It saves 0.1 seconds, I believe, if you do it completely perfectly. So if you want to go for it, I mean go for it, but I would recommend spinning here. This part is pretty straightforward. You're just going to want to spin off the ledge into the flower down below because it's a little bit faster than the one that's up top, and you're just going to want to fly towards the door. This room is actually incredibly difficult to do completely optimally, so I'll go over the small details when we get there, but I would highly recommend studying my input display for this one, because it is very easy to lose, you know, lots of small bits of time to just like dumb, unoptimized stuff, so. So here you just want to fly over to this platform. Walking is very slightly faster than just flying, so you actually want to press A to drop off the flower right as you see Link's feet here past the ledge. Alright, so this is ledge grab skip. Typically here Link will grab the ledge here instead of just landing on the platform. There's no like definitive way to do this that will make it, 100% consistent. It's really something you just kind of have to sit down and practice a little bit. My best tip for it is to kind of like curve your flight pattern into the middle of the platform, which you can see in just a second here. But it is a little bit difficult, and if you can't get it at first, it's not really a big deal. It only saves, a couple seconds here, so. Alright, so this is the flower text skip. I actually miss it in this video that I'm using for reference here, but it is pretty simple. You do just turn and then side hop and hold A to sink into the flower. It's a little bit tricky, especially coming from ledge grab skip, and it only loses a second if you fail it, so it's not really something you need to worry about too much, but it is something to take note of. So hard. Alright, this is the Happy Mask Salesman cutscene skip. There is 1,000,001 tutorial videos on this trick, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on, how it works and everything like that. But one piece of advice here when lining up for the backwalk is to position Link's left foot to the very right of this line on the ground. Doing HMS from the right door instead of the left door is actually very slightly more lenient and easier. So I would highly recommend it, especially for a reset heavy category like any percent. Just for reference as well, this is the frame that you want to pause on if you're going for 10 pause HMS, which is the fastest way to do HMS. And it's the frame where the camera kind of pops up here, where you can see the top of his head. For reference as well, this frame right here where you can see Link's feet is the frame that you want to release target. Holy shit. I got an 809 without text skip. Since we are on English, it's actually faster to reset here to skip the text sequence with tattle. So as soon as you see the UI appear with the C buttons and everything, that's when you're safe to hit the reset button on your console. So from now until we start doing the first cycle skip setup, our in-game time basically doesn't really matter because we have to wait for a night transition anyways. So any movement here doesn't, it doesn't have to be super optimal or anything. You can kind of just do whatever's comfortable. The time window is super easy to make, so whatever is more comfortable for you, I would recommend. I'll let this part play out so you can see what I do, and if you want to replicate that, that's fine, or you can find, whatever works for you. It's a pretty good start. So like I said earlier, your movement doesn't really matter here because we need to make an in-game time segment anyways. However, things like text boxes where in-game time is paused does actually matter. So for non-text here, we're just going to want to give a rhythmic B press to advance the text as fast as possible. Here as well, we want to listen to the Carnival of Time story here 4 times in order to advance our in-game time to 3 PM. So just, over and over again, just listen to the same story. Be careful not to talk to Andrew here, it's super easy to do and will lose you a lot of time. So in order to skip a cutscene in North Clocktown, we're actually going to want to do Clocktown Escape here, and then enter North Clocktown from Termina Field. So to do that is super easy, you literally just backwalk into the right side of this guard, like shown, and then just kind of walk around. This run has potential. So now is first cycle skip, which I'm sure is part of the reason why you're watching this tutorial video in the first place. I do my own method for this. Turkenheimer has a video on his setup, which is a little bit different. I would recommend trying both and figuring out which one works for you. But this trick in particular is very precise and has a lot of different important parts to it, and I'll explain each individual one as it comes up. The important thing to know right now is when we start the bomber minigame by talking to Jim after shooting the balloon, everything from our camera to, what's loaded, Link's position, it's all relatively important. So I will be going over that in individual segments here just to make sure that you have an understanding of what's, really going on. So this, while not actually relevant to first cycle skip, is pretty important if you're going for a good time. How you talk to Jim, the bomber kid here, actually can lose you time depending on how the other bomber kids spawn. All you need to really know, though, is you want to get basically right in front of him and then talk to him. Because however, the camera is facing and how the bomber kids load in can cause lag, and it can take them more time to get into position, which can lose you like a couple seconds. So I would just replicate what I do here. So this portion of the trick is known as the heap setup. It's how we align the actor list to be in an order that allows the SRM to work in the first place. And one important key detail of that is keeping the Keaton bushes over by the tree loaded at all times before the night transition occurs. So to do that, after the fade out, just backwalk, and when you backflip up onto this ledge, I kind of just flick up left just so I'm facing them, and try to stay facing them to keep them on camera all the way up until the night transition. So now we need to get over to the sign by the Deku Playground, and in order to do that, we need to do something called a twisted backflip in order to grab this ledge without culling the bushes, which would kill our heap setup. So to do that, pay close attention to my input display here. It's very simple. All you need to do is input a backflip, and mid-air, let go of target and just hold straight right. Now all we gotta do is hang out by this sign until the night transition happens. So there's a couple things to note here. For one, after the night transition, we're gonna be completing the heap setup. And if you're practicing this on KZ, or the practice ROM, in the description I've left some memory address watches that you can plug in to see if you have your heap setup correct, which I would highly recommend, especially with the save states and stuff. It makes practicing this trick 100 times easier. I left a link to the practice ROM down there as well. But the very first step after the night transition is to do a spin here in order to cut the sign down. After cutting the sign down, you're going to want to get into the corner over here and then press target and B in order to enter the third person bubble cam. This is going to cull the bushes that we were talking about earlier, which is important to the heap setup. And then you can just kind of side hop away in order to get out. So here, in order to escape, we're going to do a twisted side hop, which is identical to a twisted backflip. You just kind of stand on the flowers, side hop, let go of target. Super easy. So this part is the notoriously most annoying part of the setup. We need to position the bomber kid in a kind of specific spot, and I'll show the visual cue for that in just a second. But the only real important thing to note here is that if the bomber kid runs directly into one of the walls at like a sharp angle, he's going to run away some distance in a random direction. And if that happens, you have to move him back into position again. It's very slow. So I would highly recommend practicing this part over and over again because it will screw you up a lot. So for this part, you want to line the bomber kit up on this light patch of grass on the ground here. I'll zoom in to make that a little bit more obvious. And you want to position him basically just at the very edge of it. Now at this point, we want to align the right side of Link up with this line here, like so. Now you're going to want to enter bubble cam again and do a full backflip backwards. Now do one ESS turn left. Now target and shield turn down. It's very important that Link does not take a step when doing this. Now untarget and do 2 spins in place. Now you want to ESS turn right and up until this frame. You know you have the right frame when Link's left foot is visible behind his right foot. Now we're going to do 3 shield scoots forward. Now that we're in position, it's time to start doing the trick. To start off, you want to hold Z and start charging a bubble until it reaches its max size. Now I did this part unbuffered, but if you're just starting off, I would recommend buffering this part. You just want to input 1 frame of down, B, and target. Now we want to buffer only target in order to shoot the bubble at the bomber. I buffer multiple frames here, but again, if you're just starting off, I would recommend doing this frame by frame. But we want to buffer just down until this frame right here where Deku Link is sticking his hands up. Now here, you want to buffer only B to start blowing a second bubble. Now we want to aim to repause on this frame specifically right here. You know you have the correct frame when the very top of the mailbox is visible above the bubble. Now you want to buffer only down and B until your rupee counter is just below the branches of this tree. Then, as you just saw, you want to buffer 3 frames of neutral and B. I do this part unbuffered as you just saw, but you want to buffer 2 frames of just left so that you shoot the bubble at the balloon. Then you want to buffer 1 frame of A in order to get out of the bubble camera. Now buffer 1 frame of right in order to turn Link to the right. Now buffer 1 frame of target. Now we're going to buffer an inverted side hop. In order to do that, all you're going to do is buffer down, target, and A, and then we're going to aim to repause on a specific frame. So this is the correct frame. You know you're on this frame when the right side of Link's head passes this white splotch on the wall. Now you just want to buffer 2 frames of target, neutral, and B. Now we're going to buffer 7 frames of right, target, and B. Thankfully, there is a very easy visual cue that you can use that I'll show in just a second. Assuming you've done everything correct in the trick thus far, the correct frame to continue on in this trick is when you see grass peeking behind the tree in the bottom right side of the screen. At this point, you want to switch to holding down for 7 frames, which again has a very easy visual cue. This is what the correct frame looks like. You know you've got it when Link's hat is overlapping with the C button. Now just switch from holding down to up for 1 frame. After that, just buffer in a side hop and hold right until you tag the bomber. Now if you did everything right, you should get a result that looks something like this. Now all you have to do is wait for the bubble to pop in Link's mouth, and then close the text box. You know the trick worked if you hear the balloon pop immediately after closing the text box, and if that does happen, you want to mash pause and then highlight your cursor over the Deku Nuts. Now while we're waiting for the smoke to dissipate from the balloon, you want to spin towards the Clocktown exit, pause, and then press up 12 times on the control stick in order to highlight the correct items. Now, before we move on, let's talk about a few reasons why this trick can fail. The most common reason this can fail is bad RNG. When shooting the second bubble at the balloon, it'll occasionally just miss it entirely, and you know this happens when you close the text box and there's no sound at the balloon popping. The other most common way of failing this trick is by tagging the bomber too late. This often happens if you advance too many frames at any part of this trick, or if you blow an incorrect size bubble too. You know this happens if you hear the balloon explode before the bomber is tagged. I think the run is dead. There are numerous other ways this trick can fail as well, but is mostly related to either Link's position or the bomber's position. So if you get something weird, where the balloon explodes super early despite you having the right frames, or if you tag the bomber with the incorrect angle, that's likely due to one of those two factors. That being said, this trick is hard, and you're not going to get it down right away, so I'd recommend putting a lot of practice into this before doing runs and making sure that you're able to get it consistently. That being said, let's continue with the tutorial. Oh my god. This is 3 seconds faster than record right now. Now again, we want to enter West Clocktown from Termina Field in order to skip a cutscene. So just transform Goron after equipping it, and then roll to West Clocktown. Now all we need to do is talk to the Scarecrow in order to advance to day 2. This is important for a later trick, so make sure you do this. Dude. Oh my god. Now we just want to roll to Woods of Mystery while trying to collect as much magic from the bushes as we can. Alright, I need to get magic drops in this next area. If I do, then I can skip the one in the Majora fight. That's actually pretty bad. Now this part is very important. In order for the heat manip in Woods to work out correctly, we need to make sure that the witch does not spawn in there. In order to do so, we have to roll into the woods without looking at the witch's hut, because looking at the witch's hut is the trigger that spawns her in the woods. Now it's time for the Woods of Mystery Heap manip. It's super simple, so just follow along with what I'm doing. The general gist of it is to destroy the far right bush, turn human, draw the hookshot, and then walk into the room with the snapper. Now this room with the snapper is where we're going to perform the SRM. To start off, you want to make sure that you put the hookshot away. Now this part's kind of tricky. We want to perform something called inverted camera. In order to do that, you're going to hold down target, release target, flick right, and then repress target. It's kind of tricky and it might take a little bit to get down, but with a little bit of practice, it's pretty easy. Now we just need to time a super slide off the snapper. An important thing to note here is that you want to hold target until you pass the loading transition for the next room. That's unfortunate. Now it's time for the angle setup for Moon Warp. To start off, you want to get a straight angle by targeting this wall. After that, just position Link between the root and this wall. Now you want to begin buffering a backwalk, and you know you have the correct frame here when you see Link pick up his left foot. Now you just want to switch from holding down to right until a specific frame. This is what the correct frame looks like. You know you have the right frame when Link's foot is obscured by the root. Once you're on this frame, all you have to do is buffer an A press in order to throw the bush. Now if you got bad RNG like I did in this video, you want to go ahead and grab the magic pot that's directly behind you. Now a notable optimization that I do here is that you want to put on the Goron mask before you put on the FD mask. Doing so will skip a 3-second cutscene of putting the mask on. And that's that. After putting on the FD mask, you just fight Majora like normally, and end the run. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please let me know. I'll be sure to answer in the comments section below. Don't forget as well to check out the description. I went ahead and linked a bunch of resources that will make learning and practicing this route much easier. If you're interested in watching speedruns of this route, make sure to check out my Twitch. It's also linked below.